What is up, gente? I'm here to give you some highlights of June and a little bit of May. I had to combine them both because with all the moving and the craziness, I just haven't been able to really sit down and do a books and blush. So I'm gonna make sure I highlight some favorites and I'm gonna go in order. A little warning, my ratings may not make any sense. I'm gonna go from my most loved to my least most loved, but these are all 4 stars and up. So let's get ready and talk about some of my favorite books from May and June. I'm gonna go to this ramen place that I heard was really good. I've never had ramen in Italy. I'm just super curious. So we're just gonna do something simple because we're just gonna go out real quick. I've definitely played around with makeup while being here to see what I can handle, but still. My top favorite read and my most shocking read so far, A Court of Mist and Fury. A Court of Mist and Fury is the second book of ACOTAR, which I did a whole book rant on, and I'm just really surprised I liked the second book as much as I did. At times I still couldn't stand Feyre. I was just like, why are you the way that you choose to be? But overall, I have to say I'm so impressed with Sarah J. Maas's writing. I was really surprised. I also loved the character depth. I mean, there's centuries of stuff that happened between these characters, and there are so many different families and just fantasy elements, and as a fantasy reader, I just freaking love that so much. I'm very picky, and I think I focus a lot more on character depth than other things when I'm reading books. If characters just don't have the right depth, it can really kill a book for me. No matter how intricate or detailed the world is, I just really care about connecting with a character and them feeling like three-dimensional. And A Court of Mist and Fury had all of that. Like, every single character has so much depth. We spoke a little bit with the Bat Boys like Cassian, Azriel, and Rhysand. You can tell there's more stuff than what we learned in this book because after all, we are learning from Feyre's point of view, and she's just a hot mess. I did like Feyre even more in this one. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. Can you believe it? 5 whole stars, because wow, it was that freaking good. Her world building was excellent. Elements of fantasy were amazing. The characters had so much depth, but the way she paced it was perfect. Her writing was spectacular. I could definitely see her unravel and unfold these characters, and it's not easy to put your character through a lot of trauma, especially trauma they had before the book even started, and still manage to heal them without making it go too fast or boring the reader because it's the same thing over and over. So I really did admire the author because Feyre's journey was definitely a really good one. She did a really great job overall. What can I say? I do plan to continue that series, so I can't wait. Okay, the second book, oh my gosh, it has the book world by a freaking chokehold, and we love it. Okay, it's Fourth Wing. I don't think I can get enough versions of this book, and it's simply because there are beautiful versions out there. I haven't found like a version I love of A Court of Mist and Fury yet. I'm gonna keep looking around and see what's out there because the books just keep getting republished over and over. Everyone's just trying to design for Fourth Wing, and I love it so much. I don't care if I have 10 stunning copies of it. You guys saw it in my last vlog, or if you haven't, please check it out. I do have the first edition because someone put me on the book before it was released, like a couple days before. So I was lucky and I got the stenciled version. But I love this book so freaking much. It's a war college, it has dragons, it has fantasy, it has enemies to lovers, it has disability rep. So it's this girl Violet whose body is just so fragile. It feels so bad. She's in constant chronic pain. The book literally describes her body as just being disjointed constantly, like torn by the softest things. And now she's at this freaking war college where like you graduate if you survive, basically. And one of the top leaders hates her so much because her mom literally killed his father for being the head of this insane rebellion. So she has a lot to watch out for. A lot of people don't like her, and they also underestimate her. It was just so good. I really liked her as an MC. I liked the world. Sometimes the dialogue was a little cheesy though, and I definitely forgot that this was a new adult fantasy book. It definitely read more YA, and I think if it weren't for some of the violence and some of the smuttiness, I would not consider this new adult. So the writing wasn't anything spectacular, but the story was just so epic, and I love the characters that I can't give this anything less than 4 stars. So that's not happening. I gave this book 4.5 stars, okay? Simply because epic storyline. It's definitely for your reader that loved Hunger Games, Divergent, and Twilight, and all of those classic YA books when you were younger, like me. I really love that the author didn't just drag like one storyline. There were many things that happened in this book. I noticed that some people did say it actually made it a little bit chaotic or like all over the place because she added so many things in there. At the end of the day, the author made sure to touch on every single end and tie up loose ends, right? So I really liked it. The reason I gave it 4.5, even though it's my second favorite book of the last 2 months, is because of the writing. Her cussing was just unnecessary. I'm not opposed to cussing in a book, but this one just had so many that it was starting to distract me. And if your writing is distracting me in this negative way or like taking me away from the story, I am gonna rate it lower. Okay. Third favorite book I want to highlight is Ariadne. Now this is where I warn you guys that my rating system and ranking system don't make any sense, because I gave Ariadne 5 stars, but it's number 3 on my list. And the reason it's number 3 is because everything about this was absolutely stunning, but it doesn't pull on my heart like Fourth Wing does, for example. So Fourth Wing may be rated lower due to the writing aspect, but I'm freaking obsessed with that story. Whereas Ariadne is beautiful in every way, but I'm not necessarily, adopting it as my entire personality right now. Ariadne is gorgeous. I did not think I was a fan of Greek retellings until this book. It is so beautiful. I cannot get over it. It has incredible themes on motherhood, on womanhood, sisterhood that we don't often talk about. And the book basically showcases how women often surrender their identity for their family or for a man they love. And I think for my generation, we can definitely see like mothers, aunts, or grandmas that have done this. This was such a tragic story, and I think it's definitely an adult read, because I didn't realize that YA really has more happily ever afters than adult books. It may sound kind of weird or kind of like, well, duh, Joanna, that makes a lot of sense, because adult novels are more gray and don't always have a happy ending, but I didn't realize I was expecting a happy ending until the very end. So Ariadne is a retelling of the princess Ariadne of Crete. Her father, and I forgot his name, it's like Minos. Her father, Minos, is a really awful leader. Like, he's really strict, he's very greedy, which is also a big theme in this book. Greedy, powerful men who just have to showcase how big of a pee-pee they have. They just really end up killing all of their families due to greed. So King Minos is he's one of these men that rather have power. And because this is a Greek retelling, we have gods like Zeus and Poseidon throughout the story. So he does something really foolish, and he tries to trick Poseidon and he tries to trick Zeus. And because he does this, the god Poseidon decides to retaliate against his wife. So here we are, like the very first story we get into is a woman paying for the sins of their husband. He does something so shameful, you guys, it's so rough. I definitely would check trigger warnings if I were you, because there are definitely like certain scenes, certain themes in this book that I don't even think I can say here on YouTube. Fortunately, it's nothing graphic, so it won't show you everything like lessons in chemistry, but it still broke my heart. And basically this left her a shell of a woman, and she ended up giving birth to this half animal, half human. So I'll just put it that way. You can guess what was done to her, what happened to her for her to, get pregnant. Meanwhile, Ariadne also has a sister, Phaedra, who's a lot more rough around the edges, but has never had a proper, normal, happy family dynamic ever. She kind of grew up already in this insane dynamic when King Minos was never kind and mom was never present. Ariadne goes through her own journey where she goes through abandonment and healing and then heartbreak again, and just all of these really sad things. And Phaedra Phaedra also, oh my gosh, it was just awesome seeing motherhood shown in this book, because you definitely have characters that are going through postpartum depression, and you have characters that are so fulfilled after having kids, and to see their struggles in both of those timelines was so raw and so beautiful. We don't often share stories about mothers, and I feel like we should, without making it seem like being pregnant is the worst thing in the world, or being pregnant is the only way to feel fulfilled as a woman. So this book really made these two storylines come together. It was just so beautiful and so raw to see. And Jennifer Saint did a great job with the pacing, the characters, the themes, the tragedies. I was really surprised by all the time jumps, because I don't know, I guess I expected things to just happen like they often do in YA. I highly recommend it. I think it's definitely a great book. And if for some reason you're a girl dad watching this, or a dad in general, you need to read this book as well. It's such an important book to read. All right, number 4, we have Daisy Jones and the Six. Oh my gosh, I did not hear about this book until I noticed that Reese Witherspoon got the rights to the book and made a Prime show. So she made a whole TV show around it, and Reese's production company is just doing amazing jobs. Like, I love her book club, and I love her book to movie adaptations. And she always chooses books that focus on a strong female MC and just women's voices. So I love that so much. I asked a lot of people over on Bookstagram if the book is worth it, if I should read it, and I got an overwhelming response like, yes, you need to read it, it's so good. And oh my god, it's so good. But it's also one of the best, or if not the best, audiobook I've read of all time. It has a full cast. It was awesome. It was such a ride, and I also felt like I was just listening to tea the whole time. So Daisy Jones and the Six is written like an interview. So someone is interviewing this famous band from the 70s, I believe, asking what happened to you guys, like what's the actual story, because you guys made it so big, you did the biggest show ever, and then you just stopped. You disappeared. We never heard from you again. You've never given an interview since. Like, none of them ever gave an interview on what happened and why the band broke up. But there was, of course, a lot of speculation of like what happened, including this raw affair between Daisy Jones, one of the lead singers, and Billy Dunn, the main male singer who was originally the leader of the Six. I think the band in this book is inspired by Fleetwood Mac. I may be completely wrong, but that's what I remember. It really did feel like we were reading about an actual band, which is kind of wild if you think about it, because it's a whole fictional story. But I loved the characters so much. I thought Daisy Jones was, of course, a little fierce, but also selfish. The book does touch on a lot of things like infidelity, addiction. Addiction ended up being a really big theme here that I thought was actually really beautiful, the way they talked about it, and didn't just normalize it. Like, the book didn't just skim it over like, oh yeah, whatever, drugs are cool and this is bound to happen. It actually put it in the forefront of why it was an issue. It talks about fatherhood, love, friendship, ambition, and found family. So it was really great. At first I thought I would hate Billy because I just hate like cheaters in general. I always like get so mad when it happens in books and stuff like that. I'm always like, you suck. But I've also just heard a lot in general about this specific author, Taylor Jenkins Reid. And so now I'm curious about their other books because, you know, this was really popular, but I've seen a lot of people rave about this author in general. If you have any suggestions, please let me know below. And also, if you're enjoying all of these books and blush and wrap-ups, make sure you hit subscribe so that you can see when I upload next. So overall, I gave Daisy Jones and the Six 4.5 stars. I just really liked it, and I think I would definitely reread it, and I would definitely do the audiobook again. I also started the TV show. I have one episode left because I didn't want it to end. I have a video planned for that, comparing the book to the movie and going more in depth about the book. Okay, next I have Legends and Lattes. I've had this book for a while, and then I went off out of state and I forgot it and I left it behind, so I was finally able to come back to it and actually like read it and stuff. Now, Legends and Lattes was actually a little hard for me to get through at first, and it wasn't because it was bad or anything. It's just I'm really not used to quote unquote cozy reads. I guess I'm really used to like action-packed fantasies or dystopian or heartbreaking stories where it just keeps me turning. But I really wanted to give this book a chance because it really did sound beautiful and cozy, and the copy I received from my indie bookstore was signed by the author, and it's just a really special copy to have. So I gave it a try and it was really sweet. It was kind of weird feeling like, where's the plot? Where's the danger? Where's the action? It's just such a different type of storyline than I'm used to, and like I said, the first time I really read something cozy. But I really fell in love with the characters. I especially fell in love with the gnome, I believe, that helps our MC build everything. The names are kind of all over the place, so I forgot his name. I'm so sorry. The way he built the cafe for Viv, I just really loved him so much. I don't know why. I don't know how I got attached to this little character that barely says any words, and the whole time I just felt like I just really wanted to go to a bakery so bad, and it smelled like the book smelled good. I wouldn't be surprised if someone actually opened a Legends and Lattes and tried to create the bread, or maybe that recipe is already out there, but it all sounds so yummy. Like I just want some so bad. And I thought it was so cute because I mean, during the whole book, everyone's just trying to fulfill their dreams and fulfill their hopes, and it really shows you what happens when you're pursuing your dream. Oftentimes you'll find people in the same trajectory trying to find their dream, and you kind of just come together and you get to choose who you do this with and if you're gonna do life with that person. Definitely notice that I love a found family theme because most of these books I'm talking about are found family. So I ended up giving Legends and Lattes 4 stars because I didn't absolutely love it as much as I thought I would, but it was really cute, it was really cozy, it made me feel warm, and I definitely want to read the prequel. I'm very excited to hear about Viv's backstory. I just love prequels. Okay, 2 more. Every Heart is a Doorway. So Every Heart is a Doorway was actually recommended to me by a friend for the 12 Recs challenge. It's definitely totally out of my element, but you guys know that I'm reading all over the place to give you a variety of genres and suggestions. So Every Heart is a Doorway talks about wayward children who legitimately found themselves a door, kind of like Alice in Wonderland, and they went through all these worlds and then they got thrown out of that world because they don't actually belong there, or they no longer belong there. And a lot of them really have hope that they'll come back because they just can't come back to our world. So it really touches on belonging. I really focus on Nancy. So she's recently thrown out and she makes it to this manor where they have all these wayward children, where this head mistress promises that she'll get your child back on track and, you know, get your child back. And all these parents, of course, just want their kids to be normal, right? A lot of these kids have maybe been gone for years, even though it was like 20 minutes, and some of them have come back the same age and some of them are older. So I really felt this book. I really felt how these kids are all trying to find their place in the world, and I was really surprised by how beautiful this story was. I know some people criticize that it's really fast, or not a lot happens, or we don't have enough time to get attached to all these characters, but I really loved all the characters. I didn't feel like we had to keep going so much. I felt for all of them, but I also believe we should listen to teens more and young kids more, and maybe that's why it was easier for me to accept everything these kids were saying and struggling with. I wasn't like, oh yeah, prove it. I was just like, oh, they're lost in the world right now. This felt like a cozy read, weird enough, even though it has like a murder mystery involved in it, just because I loved their friendship and how they show up for each other. So I actually really liked it, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think I would definitely reread it. I did want to explore certain characters a little bit more, just to know more about who they are and their past, and touch on the themes a little bit more. But overall, I was really surprised by how much it swayed me and how deep it touched me. And it's definitely an odd book. It reminds me a little bit of like Melissa Albert and the way she writes some of her books, and I really enjoyed Melissa Albert's writing as well and her storylines, and I would definitely recommend it if you like those weird type of stories. Before we get to the last one, let's just spray this down. Okay, final book. I read Serpent Dove. I'm pretty late to the game. I know this book was super popular like a few years back. It just took over the book world. This book is also a 12 Rec Challenge recommendation. I was really surprised by how much I liked it because I've actually seen pretty in-depth reviews about this book, and it just sounded really ridiculous the way some people talked about it or why they rated it really low. But I can see why this was so popular back then. I can see why it's popular now. It was really good. So this book also touches on themes of feminism for sure, womanhood. It's a witch story, and I feel like witches have always been used as a way of storytelling and empowering women, but this book actually has a conflict between religion and witches. And me personally, I have really big faith, so whenever I see things like that, I don't always take it personally, because to me, having faith and believing in God means you're actually gonna follow the heart that the Bible lays out for that. And when I read things like in Serpent and Dove and how these men of faith are so hateful, so angry, anti-women, that's not what at least my religion is. So I don't take it personally, but I just want to make a note of that, because I did realize like, oh, this is very heavy on religion and talking about religion. And I think if you were to actually read what the heart behind, for me specifically, behind like Christianity should be, that's not it. Okay, we're not like burning all these creatures down. Greedy people, okay, greedy people end up taking the best things and just turning it into the worst things ever. But there's definitely a really big narrative and commentary on religion throughout this book, and hypocrisy, which is actually in the Bible, that we shouldn't be hypocrites, right? Anyways, there was a lot that happened in this book. I don't even remember everything that happened in this book anymore. I just remember thinking, wow, this is really intricate. It really goes in depth. The main character, she is running away from her coven because her mom basically wants to kill her to protect their coven. Obviously not winning best mom of the year at all there. She lives on the streets because of this, and she ends up running into this man who is part of like these men of faith that preserve themselves. Like, they don't get married, they don't have relations, and they hate witches. Like, above all else, they hate witches. And so this is an enemies to lovers show, which I freaking love. It's also like fake marriage and forced proximity. They have to pretend they're married because of all these incidents. And so at first she's like, okay, whatever. Over time, her feelings grow for this man, so it makes it even more dangerous. As for the guy, he is what you would expect of someone who grew up in a very strict household, or in this case, like monastery, sanctuary, church, whatever you want to call it. You know, he's very firm in his beliefs. He thinks he's doing the right thing, and he does have his heart in the right place, but obviously he was taught that he should hate witches and he should never be open-minded about these things, even though there's like a whole big hypocrite in this book that's a main leader in this. I have to say, I really liked him a lot more than I liked her, and I think it's because she was just unnecessarily mean all the time. I was like, girl, chill. Like, nothing is going on here for you to be this triggered right now. Like, you're fine. He was the more honest and open one, and I'm such a sucker for like a morally right guy. Like, I love morally gray, but when you have a sincerely good-hearted man in a book, I just melt. It's kind of like Captain America. It's not that he's like patriotic and he's always doing things for America. He just wants to do what's right, period. This is why you had Civil War and him joining against the government, because that wasn't the right thing to do. So I just love a character that is sincerely good-hearted. You just don't see it very often. And I feel like the only reason this ship worked was because of him. She was starting to annoy the heck out of me. I also really liked her friend Coco, but I can see what people mean of like, you're only gonna have one character of color and you're gonna name her Coco. I'm definitely curious about the second book, although I have seen that the second book got a lower rating than the first book. So of course I gave this book 4 stars. It was such a wild ride. I wasn't sure if I would like it. Anyway, like I said, that one was a big surprise indeed, but I really ended up liking it. So I can't wait to move on to the second book, and I can definitely say why it's a very popular book. Those are the books I wanted to highlight from May and June. I really hope you liked it, and thanks for hanging out, getting ready with me. I can't wait to go eat because I'm starving. Make sure you hit like, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.